that He has guided us to come together to go over one of the most virtuous acts in Islam. What Allah Ta'ala has given from the acts of worship, badan wal mal, a acts of worship that combines of wealth and also of what the body may perform from the limbs. All of this is to be looked at. Coming to look at this act of worship, which is Umrah, visiting the Kaaba and performing the ritual acts therein. All of this is from what we have come together to look over. And here we're just students benefiting from those before us. أولئك الذين هدى الله فبهداه مقتدر. There who Allah Ta'ala has guided to take them as a good example. Hey, these imams that we're benefiting from, and inshallah the noble brother begins with the introduction.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Verily all praise is due to Allah, and may Allah send salat and salam upon His noble messenger Muhammad, his family, his companions, and those who follow them upon goodness up until the day of resurrection. The following guidelines and highlights pertaining to the description of Umrah is a selection of pointers and principles and layouts from what the four great Imams of our time have come to agreement upon. The likes of Shaykh bin Baz, Shaykh Al-Albani, Shaykh Uthaymeen, and Shaykh Muqbil, may Allah have mercy on all of them, along with a number of side benefits from other scholars which are ideal to be mentioned when describing the correct description of Umrah. So with no further ado, we will begin by the aid of Allah, the Most High, with the first step of Umrah.
Prior to that, when we say what these Imams have come to agreement on, what we mean generally of what these Imams collectively have come to an agreement on. And what they differ on, we mention as a side benefit. And inshallah, tafadhal.
The first step, the arrival to the miqat, which is the designated and fixed places for ihram. A. Once the person arrives to the miqat and he intends to perform ihram, which is the ritual mode of Umrah, then what is legislated upon him is that he takes off his regular clothing and takes a bath in the same method as he would make ghusl from a major impurity, while this is also recommended for the woman, even if she is in her menstrual cycle.
So here, removing the regular clothing, of sirwal, pants, t-shirts, underwear, any of this clothing that a person has custom made for his body, his size, all of that, a person will remove. And he will remain with two pieces of clothing, rida wa izar. As it comes in a hadith, let the person who is performing ihram perform his ihram, and izar, a lower garment, which is going to find a material fabric, is not even sold. And it's not must that it be what you find in many of the stores, that a fabric, it has to be unsold or not even custom made. It doesn't mean that. It means that you don't have to wear sirwal, any pants, t-shirt, underwear. Whereas if you were to take a white blanket and to cover yourself even it from the top to the bottom, this is also allowed. As Shaykh Abdul-Fattah and others have mentioned.
He should use the best sleep, which is natural fragrances or alcohol-free cologne from what is available, and the women may use some perfume which has no remaining scent with it. While the person should not put the sleep on his ihram clothing, rather he should suffice himself by using it for his beard and body.
Here comes another matter where you find some soaps, they have a scent to it. The correct opinion that these scent on the soap, it does not harm your ihram. So you can use soaps that have a scent to it, a good smell, or not.
He should wear the clothing of ihram, such as the rida, which is the upper cloak garment, and the izar, which is a lower wrap garment, or any set of clothes which hasn't been custom made for one's shape and size, such as a t-shirt or pants or socks, while it is recommended that these clothing for ihram be in the color white. As for his feet, then he can wear slippers or sandals or shoes or any footwear as long as it is not covering his ankles. As for the
matter of the ankles, this is a matter of khilaf. Some of the scholars say the hadith has been abrogated. The Prophet ﷺ, in another standing in front of a group of people, he didn't mention that. While in mentioning that is from the greatest of things that should be mentioned if it was legislated. There's none. Showing you that is become abrogated upon the correct opinion, even though we mention it here due to these four great Imams holding that.
As for the woman, then she wears her regular clothing of that which is upon her to wear when departing from her home, apart from wearing the niqab, which is the face veil that has an opening for the eye or any material sewn specifically for the covering of the face. And apart from wearing gloves, however, when the woman is in the presence of men, she should pull down her khimar, which is a head covering, onto her face as a means of covering, and likewise...
It could be any khimar, she can use the khimar to cover, or any type of piece of clothing to cover her face, as long as it's not from that which is confined for the face, a covering. Some clothing where she were to take a cloth and cover her face, this is okay.
And likewise, she should cover her hands by the means of her jilbab up until she is no longer in the presence of men.
And the permissibility of covering her face is with the consensus of the scholars.
A side note, the person may wear the clothing of ihram prior to leaving his home or at the airport or even on the airplane. However, he should not utter or establish his ihram when on the airplane except when he gets really close to the miqat, in order that he doesn't pass the miqat while not being upon the ihram. And when wearing the rida, he should wrap it over both of his shoulders, and he should not remove it from his right shoulder except when performing tawaful al-qudum.
The miqat, the designated places, and you will see it has a sign of an old name and the common name of now, so you find two names on it. While you get there, you're going to find portable bathrooms where you can take a bath, as recommended that you perform ghusl, take a bath prior to performing the ihram, as the brother mentioned. So prior to getting to the ihram, as these places will have the signs, you'll see it clearly. You won't be able to miss out if you're walking. But if you're going by plane, because you won't be able to know when you will get to the miqat, so it's upon you right before getting to the miqat by being announced on the plane, that is this amount of minutes left to the miqat, or this miqat, and we have certain miqat. We're going to mention is 5 miqat. You might see some sketch of it on the pamphlet. The first miqat we're going to mention is because relating to most people, they get off at Jeddah. So Dhul Juhfa or Dhul Hulayfa, these two places, you're going to find that most people, they enter from. As for Yemen and also Ta'if and other places, they have the miqat for it, a designated place. And for Umrah, there's only miqat makani, a designated place. As for the time, that's only for Hajj. Hajj has a specific timing, which we refer to as miqat zamani.
Likewise, he should avoid any headgear, whether it be a kufi or an imama or any sort of hats. Also, the woman should avoid any stylish or colorful clothing, and she should avoid imitating the men in their clothing, whether it be in the actual...
What we mean by any stylish, that which is attractive, that which will draw fitna, that which will remove her from the state of humility, that which will distract her from the state that she's in. All of that is upon a person to realize the ihram. Why is it? So you can remember what you'll be covered in on the day of your death. So the funeral, you'll be covered with this. So it reminds you of preparing for that day, a great day in front of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala.
It is compulsory when arriving to the miqat that he makes his ihram firstly by intending with his heart, and secondly by uttering the talbiyah saying labbaik Allahumma umrah, again labbaik Allahumma umrah, while standing when facing the qibla if possible, and he should not specify any specific prayer for establishing the ihram.
Prior to that, when you utter the ihram, it doesn't mean you're uttering your intention. Some people may say, why do we are allowed to utter our intention performing Umrah or Hajj, but for other acts of worship we cannot perform by announcing our intention? But we say this is not. Your intention was when you left your home. The day you left your home, you refer to having a niyyah. As for this is a mere symbol from the symbols of Allah. Sha'air Allah.
Also, the person, if he fears that he may not be able to finish all of the acts of Umrah due to an illness or a vital need, then he should utter along with his talbiyah the following words: Allahumma mahilli haythu habastani. Again, Allahumma mahilli haythu habastani. Whereas he will be allowed to cancel his ihram for his Umrah. And
what it means, the illness that he is certain of or almost certain of. Not just merely assuming. It's ishtiraf, making a condition prior to ihram. It only occurs if you're certain that you need something later on that you must depart from. For that reason, you will, prior to ihram, you make this condition. You don't have to leave in a state of sin. But you leave with this condition that you know you can cancel your Umrah and come back again by the will of Allah.
A side note, it is recommended shortly before his ihram that he says the following words: Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. Then he should.
It doesn't matter the order. What's the state of the person in ihram is in a state of remembrance of Allah. Increases the remembrance of Allah, of what we mentioned, tahmeed or tasbih or takbir.
Then he should continue the talbiyah saying, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. Again, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. This word, yani labbaik, we're here answering your call, O Allah. So it comes in the hadith of Bazzar that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, these are the wafd, or it comes in the meaning of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that these are the wafd of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, the guests, who have answered Allah when He has called them. He should likewise raise his voice with the talbiyah and the tahleel, saying La ilaha illallah, and the woman should raise her voice as well in establishing this ritual symbol as long as there is no harm or temptation drawn by it. They should increase in the remembrance of Allah and in uttering the talbiyah up until they arrive to the Masjid al-Haram for Dawah al-Qudum, while it is encouraged that the person takes another ghusl prior to his entry into the Masjid al-Haram, or at least performing ablution.
As for the taking a bath prior to the Masjid al-Haram, as reported for it, adillah, proofs. So you perform ghusl prior to ihram and also prior to entering the Masjid of the Prophet or the Masjid al-Haram of the Kaaba.
He should make his entry towards the Haram during the day through the gate Bab al-Milah, if possible, pursuing from there towards the gate Bab Bani Shayba, being the reason it is the...
See that is in the direction of the Maqbara. When you're coming, you'll notice it. There's so many signs. But because in our time, as Shaykh Al-Bani mentioned, it's so difficult. So as the scholars say, with the consensus of the scholars, no matter how you enter, is all permissible. So now our time is hard to enter from certain gates and certain doors. So from entering the masjid, from the main entry, the wajh of it, the far front of it, this is recommended. But if it's not possible, the person enters from where Allah Ta'ala has made easy from.
Since it's the prompt route, while he should recite the prescribed dhikr, the supplication or invocation for entering the masjid by beginning with his right foot before his left foot.
So this dhikr is not confined to the Masjid al-Haram. So every masjid, every time you enter a masjid, there's a prescribed dhikr that you recite. And also how you enter this is not confined to Umrah. This is general. It's mentioned here as a reminder. For the dhikrat al-fa'umin, remind for very the reminder benefits the believer. As for the matter of the closest route to the Black Stone, is these routes that we mentioned. So this is the closest route of entering, going directly to the Black Stone.
Inshallah, we'll move on to the second step, performing the first tawaf around the Kaaba. He should begin the first circuit of tawaf by going directly to the Black Stone to kiss it with his lips and to touch it with his right hand if possible.
Sometimes you find that people, they put atar, any perfume or any fragrance on the stone. It makes it difficult for people to kiss. But even if it's possible for you to bear it, where you may fall of hardship, if you're able to kiss without causing any harm, especially in a time of crowd, severity of crowd, if you're able to kiss it, why it's made easy for you, then you go for it. Or else, causing harm to the people by harming them with your legs or your body, this is haram. And just kissing the stone is recommended.
And if it is difficult to kiss it due to the severity of the crowd around it, he should merely touch it with his right hand or by a cane, then kisses his hand or the cane depending what he touched it with. Or unless he can suffice himself by pointing his right hand towards it while saying Allahu Akbar.
He's saluting it when he's pointing his hand towards it. It comes in a hadith that the Hajar al-Aswad was a test for those who istalamaha bihaq. Those who touched it with truth, with iman, of following the Prophet ﷺ, not to do tabarruk, not to follow what the people may do, touching the stone and then wiping on their children, seeking barakah. This is not what we are looking for. We're just doing it because this is the method that the Prophet ﷺ done. And if the Prophet ﷺ did not kiss it, we wouldn't be of those who kissed it.
So when he points his right hand towards it while saying Allahu Akbar, he does not kiss his hand in this scenario. He begins a tawaf around the Kaaba by making the area of the black stone his starting point and his counting point while keeping the Kaaba on his left side. Yani you go counterclockwise. He should perform his 7 circuits, which are the rounds and laps, around the Kaaba by counting each lap around the Kaaba according to the number of times he passed the area of the black stone.
So he can walk, and if it's difficult for a person, and he can't walk, so he can use a wheelchair or anyone to push him, but was found there.
Likewise, the person should repeat the above instructions for touching the black stone when encountering it upon every lap of his tawaf. As for when he encounters the Yemeni corner of the Kaaba, it is recommended that he makes effort every time he encounters it during his tawaf to touch it with his right hand if possible, while he should not kiss it nor point towards it nor say Allahu Akbar when facing it. But verily that is only specific to the black stone, and the person should not touch any of the other two corners of the Kaaba while there isn't any specific dhikr when doing the tawaf. However, he can merely remember Allah generally to himself and not in congregation.
So he can recite Quran while he's doing tawaf. Or he can remember Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala of any dhikr that's prescribed from the Quran and Sunnah. Or he can generally invoke Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, asking him for his fadl. Allah says in the Quran, وَاسْأَلُ اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala for his bounty. Here you're performing a great act of worship, so you should use this act of worship that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala answers your dua.
He should wrap the middle part of his upper garment under his right shoulder, and he should cover his left shoulder with the other 2 ends of his upper garment while he remains upon that appearance up until he completely finishes his tawaf, whereas he would undo it and return to covering both of his shoulders with his upper garment.
So you find people, before them doing tawaf, they keep the upper garment under their armpits. So this is not correct. You're supposed to only do that in a state of tawaf, and you would go in a state of boldness, showing the symbols of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, showing the symbols of Allah.
On the first 3 circuits of tawaf, he should walk at speedy pace if possible, while on the rest of his tawaf he would walk normally at his regular pace, bearing in mind that the above is relating to the man and not for the woman.
You find in all case scenarios where it's relating to walking at a speedy pace or running, all of this is relating to the men. Even when he's climbing the hill of Marwa and Safa, this is relating to the men. As for the woman, once she sees that sign, the stop sign, she can stop there, because it may lead to her intermingling with the people and following into what la tuhmad uqba, not pleased of what relates to the consequences.
If the woman is in a state of impurity due to her menses cycle, she should refrain from performing tawaf and delay up until she can become pure, while she can continue her Umrah by moving on to performing the sa'i, being the reason it is only recommended to be on purity when performing the sa'i and it's not a condition. وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَّقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take the station of Ibrahim as a place of prayer.
So you will recite this verse. Once he's done and he's at the station, you recite the verse as the Prophet ﷺ has recited it.
Again, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَّقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Once the person finishes his tawaf, he should go pray 2 raka'at behind the maqam of Ibrahim, which is located in front of the Kaaba. However, if that is difficult due to the severity of the crowd around it, then he can go to any area within the Masjidul Haram to pray 2 units of prayer, wherein it is recommended that he recite in the first raka'ah Surah Al-Kafirun, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, and in the second raka'ah Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ.
Some people refer to this raka'atain as sunnatul tawaf. The sunnah of after tawaf you pray raka'atain.
Then he should depart to the Zamzam area so that he may drink from it and so that he may pour some of it over his head. Then lastly, he should return to touch the black stone once.
While he's drinking from it, he makes dua. For ma Zamzam lima shuriba lah. The water of Zamzam is for what you drank it for. So if your intention was making a dua that Allah Tabarak Ta'ala increases you of His blessings and His bounties, then Allah Tabarak will answer for you. So you should make dua. And look that this is something what Allah Tabarak Ta'ala made different from any type of other water. So you should have ta'zeem.
So after he pours it over his head, he should return to touch the black stone once again upon the same instructions mentioned above. A side note, some of the scholars see the authenticity of the following dua: رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, and that it should be recited when a person is between the corner of the black stone and the Yemeni corner.
So basically at the beginning of his first lap, or his second lap, or any other lap, he would say that each time. And this hadith is found in Sunan Abi Dawud and others, and there's a person there who is referred to as majhul. They differ if he was someone that's known as a narrator, trustworthy narrator. For that reason, Sheikh Muqbil and others refer to this narration as being weak. And most of the scholars, they see that this narration is authentic.
Also, when performing the tawaf, he should make sure he goes around the hijr and that he doesn't include from his tawaf what is within the hijr, which
the hijr, some people refer to as the hijr Ismail. And Shaykh al-Uthaymeen said this name has no origin to it, hijr Ismail. But rather, this hijr was to show that you should not perform tawaf within it, but rather around it. Because due to the nafaqah, was the amount of money that was given to finish the building of the Kaaba, because it fell short, they couldn't complete. For that reason, they put this wall to indicate that a person doesn't perform tawaf within it, but rather around it.
If the congregational prayer has been called for, he should pause his tawaf to go pray, and he shouldn't forget to cover his shoulders for the prayer. And once he finishes his prayer, he should resume his tawaf from where he left off.
That's after the dhikr, prescribed dhikr of salawat. You won't just do like some people do, they jump and they run and they touch certain things looking for barakah. They even forget the dhikr of the salawat. La, you would perform what's prescribed upon you of salawat, but then you return and resume. And it's not necessary that you have to have muwala. That has to be in a sequence. And you can, if you were to go for a reason and come back, then you have to restart again. La, it's not upon you that. It's not necessary, but rather you begin upon where you left off.
And he should uncover his right shoulder once again for continuing the tawaf. Inshallah, we'll move on to the third step, performing the sa'i, which is the ritual 7 circuits between the Safa hill and the Marwa hill. He should make his way to the area of Safa and Marwa. Once he gets close to the hill of Safa, he should recite the following verse: Inna as-Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah.
Shaykh al-Uthaymeen said it's muhtamal. It comes the hadith of Prophet ﷺ just recited this. But some said he recited the whole verse. There's an indication that he recited the whole verse. So a person has memorized the whole verse, he will recite all of it. But if he were to suffice himself with the beginning of what we just mentioned, then that's also understood from the hadith.
Whereas he would begin his first circuit from the bottom of Safa, while it is recommended he ascends to the top of Safa and Marwa at each circuit up until he sees the Kaaba. While facing its direction, then he should say Allahu Akbar 3 times. While it's encouraged, he utters the following words 3 times. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير لا إله إلا الله وحده أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وهزم الأحزاب وحده.
Some people, when they ascend above, they end up performing raising the hands as if they're going to the prayer, as if they're going to takbir of salat. This is wrong. You only raise your hand when you're performing this dua, along with invoking Allah Ta'ala for what Allah Ta'ala has legislated for you to ask Him for. In between each one. Not after, as some people do, but after each round of making this dua, where we do it 3 times, you can ask Allah Ta'ala in between each one.
He should then descend from the hill of Safa, walking towards the direction of Marwa up until he reaches the green aligned indicators, of which are on the left and right side of him.
You see like a light to it.
Wherein the man only would begin to run severely according to his capability up until he reaches the next green aligned indicators, of which are on the left and right side.
And prior to that, a person, when he's completing the sa'i, he must get to the place where the foot of the original hill. So he has to reach that part where the sign says stop. Like that he can stop and then continue by going back to Marwa. Or continue by going back to Safa. That's if he is not going up. So after that, a person, he would know that he should complete by ending the last part. He should not stop halfway and then go back again, or else he's not counted as one round or one circuit.
He will continue towards the direction of Marwa, walking up until he climbs the hill of Marwa, whereas he would repeat the same instructions of what was mentioned above for the hill of Safa, and by that he has completed one circuit. So he does the same for the rest of the 7 circuits between Safa and Marwa.
As for if it's sa'i, the sa'i that's going back and forth, it's not from Masjid al-Haram. You're not in the masjid due to the barrier between them. So you realize that you're not in the masjid. And as we're describing it, when you go there, you might see it different. That it has floors, and it has lights, and so much different indications. So you'll benefit from it.
Whereas he would complete the last circuit upon Marwa. However, on his last circuit, he should not repeat the aforementioned instructions for ascending on Safa and Marwa. Once the person completes his sa'i, he should shave off all the hair on his head, unless if he is expecting to perform Hajj shortly after. In that case, he should...
Meaning shortly after, that his hair will not be able to grow in that time span. For that reason, we'll leave some to cut for Hajj.
In that case, he should merely shorten his hair from all sides. As for the woman, she should only trim the size of a fingertip or less from her hair.
As it comes in the Asr, there's no halq upon the woman. And this is the consensus. That the woman, she cannot shave off her hair. This is only confined to the men.
Whereas by that they have totally completed their ihram and all the forbidden acts which were forbidden upon him during his ihram, such as having sexual relations with his wife, or using perfume, or wearing regular clothing, or wearing headgear, or making a proposal for marriage, or hunting for a lamprey, or trimming one's...
When we say headgear, we mean that which is actually on his head. For example, a hood, or anything that is connected to his head directly, he cannot wear while you say to ihram. But he can use an umbrella, he can use the shade of a car, he can use something, or even he's carrying above his head, that's not directly connected to his clothes. So here he'd be allowed that. Also from what he'd be allowed is wearing his glasses, or using a time, or having that which you use around your waist, or anything to save your money and to keep it with you. But if a person is using these two garments, some people they wear underwear underneath. That's incorrect. Unless he says إِلَّا إِذَا خَافَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ الضَّرَرَ, in a state where he fears. Or a person doesn't have, then he can wear pants. If a person doesn't have shoes, he can wear hoof. For this scenario, it's allowed for him.
So all these acts become lawful for him once again. So after he completes his Umrah, all these acts become lawful once again.
Repeat it again, so we see that these are from the things that were prohibited upon him.
Whereas by that they have totally completed their ihram and all the forbidden acts which were forbidden upon him during his ihram, such as having sexual relations with his wife, using perfume, wearing regular clothing, or wearing headgear, or making a proposal for marriage, or hunting for a lamprey, or trimming one's hair, whether it be on the hair on the body or on the beard.
For a lamprey, either you were to help or indicate towards it, so someone could serve you it. All of this is not allowed. But if it was something that you have no cooperation to it, and then it was given to you, this is okay.
A side note, it doesn't make a difference if he performs the sa'i on the first level or the second level of the sa'i ground.
Prior to that, to avoid following into these forbidden acts during ihram, you try to do it before. Before your journey, you cut your nails, cut your hair. Remove that which you need to remove prior to doing ihram, so you're not in need of it. But a person doing the ihram, he could take a bath. Some people think that they can't take a bath. He can remove the 2 pieces and change it to another 2 pieces. This is allowed for him.
It doesn't make a difference if he performs the sa'i in the first level or the second level of the sa'i ground, as has been issued by a number of the scholars. Also, on the correct opinion, it is permissible to perform the sa'i before performing the tawaf. However, it is recommended to begin with the tawaf before the sa'i.
Because the Prophet ﷺ began with it. So you start with what the Prophet ﷺ began with. But as we mentioned, if the woman, she cannot perform the tawaf, she continues with the sa'i, and then she leaves the tawaf until last. If you go to the area where is the hill, where is not from the haram at the beginning, there then she would continue performing her tawaf to complete it, unless she made a condition upon herself.
Also, if the first person is feeling fatigue or ill, then he can perform the sa'i by means of the available transportation there. While performing the sa'i between the Safa hill and the Marwa hill, it is desirable that he either busies himself with either dua or general dhikr or reciting some Quran. Also, in relation to the one who doesn't have any hair on his head to shave or to trim, then there is nothing upon him in replace of it.
There's nothing upon him. Some may say just take the machine and just move it over your head to be considering to fulfill this ritual. No, it's not upon you except if you have hair. That's the correct opinion.
Also, on an end note, whatever we mentioned above concerning the man likewise applies to the woman unless it was mentioned otherwise.
So you'll find that there's a difference between the man and the woman in some acts. So it's good to pay attention. Also, some people think that the woman she should wear green, or she should wear white as the men, or she should do a certain act of running. All of this is incorrect. It's upon you to teach your wives prior to performing the ihram. You educate them. It says before performing this act, the wajib, the obligation of performing this act starts by you learning it. So you learn what is hajj. They're done, you move forward. You start with talab al-ilm. You learn the basic of these pillars. So you won't go and just perform Umrah and say it's wajib upon me and I'm not going to learn. No, you would learn, and you won't be like those who go around the tawaf and they're reading from something and they don't even know the meaning. They're making dua of something and they don't even know. When you're reciting from these dua books, you try to know the meaning of it. Because you're seeking something from Allah Ta'ala upon awareness. You won't make dua without knowing the meaning. At the same time, with the verses, you will have to write it in a way where you're actually writing the verse in the English language. You can translate it, but you cannot write it in the English language. Because the Quran, you cannot make it in any other language. You have to pay attention to it. As for the Bismillah, it can be a Quran or it can be other than. But as for the verses, it only could be Quran. So for that reason, you would not write it or look at these books that are just written in a certain way of verses of the Quran in the English language. Because that's not from the Quran in reality. So you will not agree to it. But you try to memorize from what you can and recite from what you can. And what you don't know is not upon you. So you move it back to what we mentioned. So you will go back to an overview of certain matters to shed light on certain affairs that takes place. Some people, when they go into the miqat, they go beyond it without ihram. For example, they intend Hajj or Umrah, and then they go to Medina directly. This is incorrect. It's upon them, if they're intending Hajj and Umrah from their journey, that they perform the ihram first prior to the miqat. And if you were to go to Medina, then he remains in his ihram. He remains in his ihram while he's in Medina. What is prohibited upon the muhrim in that state will be prohibited while he's in Medina. You have to pay attention to this. As for if you were to go beyond these borders or these limits of the designated places of miqat, what is upon you if you've done it intentionally, that you return? It's upon you to return. But if a person were to go beyond it out of ignorance, there's nothing upon him. He can move forward. But if he were to continue, he would be in a state of sin. And then upon some other scholars, that is upon him fidya, penalty. So when we mention these acts that is upon him this and is upon him that, the scholars, they say that due to a narration of Ibn Abbas, that a person, he doesn't go with his obligations, will be upon him a penalty. And what's the penalty? Either him fasting, or either him feeding 6 miskeen. They say the amount of nisfu sa' for each one. Or slaughtering of a sacrifice. This will be the penalty. But there's some acts that the penalty will be no benefit. For example, he has relations with his wife. Here it nullifies his ihram in totality. But as for some acts, it doesn't nullify your ihram. You're in state of sin. If you do so, and some scholars, they say it's upon you to fulfill this penalty. As for Sheikh Muqbil, the reason why they mentioned the penalty, because it's not from what they agreed upon. Some scholars, they see that it to be a statement of a Sahabi, and it's not from the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. Then they say it's ijtihad. Ijtihad, derived ruling from a Sahabi that he strived for, and this is something that is not a hujjah, they say. For that reason, they say we cannot oblige upon a person except what Allah and His Messenger oblige upon. So you cannot say to a person upon you this penalty. And also we find now in our time, dua to taysir. Everyone say, la haraj, la haraj. You've done something wrong, la haraj, nothing wrong. So people, they can commit so much things wrong about these people that were giving fatwa in the areas of Umrah, where they say, it's okay, la haraj. Whoever does this, la haraj. No, there's certain things that the Prophet says, there's nothing wrong with you. You were to do this before that. As it comes in the hadith, as for other acts is upon you, the Prophet says, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. Take what I mentioned of the ritual, performance of Hajj and Umrah from me. So what the Prophet has done, you learn directly from him. So there's a lot of acts of innovations that are done due to ignorance. Some people, they fall into sin. Some people, you find that they do jidal in Hajj. They argue which will lead to animosity. As for jidal, about debates of knowledge, this doesn't fall into it. Also, some people, they become preoccupied with dunya affairs. Not with the remembrance of Allah. They're on their phone and WhatsApp, going back and forth. They have to say they're on ihram. This is not for it. There's an app for ihram that you can probably download. Use it for your phone to be in a state where you're in a mode you feel like you're not distracted from your phone. So you try to remove from that which will distract you from the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. There's other affairs relating to where you find about the ihram clothing. As we mentioned, that you will find a certain material being sold at stores. Person will take that. Most of them are all the same size. You take that and you wear that. So a person, he can use a string to cover, to over his waist, to tie it. He can use a certain bag for his money. All of this because he won't have no pockets. There's nothing in it. Now he can wear a belt, hizam. So a person is not prevented from that. As for a person, he fears upon himself a lot of harm if he doesn't wear any under clothing, then they say it's permissible for him. As for he doesn't fear, then it's wajib upon him to remain like everybody else. There's no difference between the rich or the poor in that state. There's no difference between this person from that country or from that country. You're all in front, is invoking Allah Ta'ala, remind you of the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. That will be of no benefit, wealth. It will be of no status. Same when you'll be standing and invoking your Lord, all of you guys together, performing this ritual. So the affair of ihram, performing 2 rak'ah. Sometimes you can, if you were to, coincidence, pray the wajibat, the 5 daily prayers, here then you perform your ihram. Or you to do the sunnah of wudu, 2 rak'atayn, then you perform the ihram. It's good that it comes after a prayer, not specialized for just ihram. You want to pray 2 rak'atayn for no reason whatsoever, and they say this is for the ihram. Except in a place that comes in hadith of the wadi, the valley, there then is recommended a person descends it and prays the 2 rak'ah, special for that place only. So there's nothing of that sort of praying 2 rak'ah, any special, for example, the Masjid al-Hulayfa or any other places, only for a prayer that has a reason. Tahiyat al-Masjid, or wudu, or the wajibat, the 5 daily prayers. Also another matter that needs to be addressed is the sutra. People, they don't have the sutra in the haram. They say because there's no need, except in the haram you're allowed. But it's been authenticated in more than one sahabi that they had a sutra and they used to call to it. So this is the affair. There's no exception. It's upon you to have the sutra, right? If it's according to capability. And if it's difficult for you to prevent the person running around